Alright, well, we're back again for another drawing video. This is drawing test 3, letter C. So we're continuing on with this drawing, and as you can see, I'm working on these scratches for the rib cage, just trying to get more defined lines of light out of it, but trying to be subtle, not too abrasive, because then it would just throw it off, in my opinion. So it's a hard choice you have to make when you're doing these kinds of light scratches, lighting, like a light source. You don't want to do too much, but you don't want to do too little, and it could throw off all the extra work that you've done in between it. So it's like you just gotta play around with it and see how it comes out. And that's what I'm doing right here. As you can see, I'm zooming in, zooming out, just checking my perspective on things. And like I said, there's no reason for it to make sense. But if you can add that little subtle touch to it, it makes all the difference. And that's what I'm doing right here. Unfortunately, a lot of this video is going to be just me working on scratches and lighting metal stuff again. But I think it's important to show all of this progress in the drawing. And there I am just playing with the layers, trying to figure out which layer is which, because sometimes when I'm trying to add so much texture to things and add stuff on top of stuff, um, I get confused which layer is which, so I have to make sure I'm not drawing on the wrong layer, because then when I want to merge layers together, um, sometimes I'll merge something, but I drew it on another layer, and then I can't, go over it with shadows or erase it without messing up something else. So you have to be really cautious of which layer you're drawing on. It can get confusing pretty fast. Yeah, I'd label my layers like you should, but even still, sometimes in the heat of, or whenever you're just working and consistently just going back and forth between layers, if you forget which layer you're selected on, you're gonna have that problem, and sometimes you have to readjust. I think I do it a few times on this drawing, maybe in this video particular, but an easy way to, save yourself from that, uh, other than having to, go back in history. And sometimes if you can't go back too much because you'll surpass what you did because you know, I'm probably confusing you now as I'm saying it, but if you if you know how to work with these programs, these drawing programs, you know that it only saves so much of the history. I mean, you could set it to more, but like, um, and I think it gives you a default pretty good amount, but like, um, yeah, you just got or a way to save yourself is to crop the section that you did the wrong layer on. Just crop it, copy it, paste a new layer, and then merge that pasted section that you messed up on onto the layer it was supposed to go on, and that kind of saves you from having to go back or erase it and do it all over on the right layer. Just a thing. I'm pretty sure if you've worked with these drawing programs, whatever, you've done that before as well. Anyways, let's move on from that because I probably just made it more complicated than it had to be with that explanation. Uh, as you can see, I'm drawing some wiring just to give it more of an effect that it is machinery. And uh, I could have went with like a cool exo, body with like armored plates, but I wanted to show that this thing is decaying and you can see the inner structures of all that. So what you're seeing there is me just adding more wires and tubing and colorful things like to make it represent that it actually is a functioning thing somehow. Um, and then I'm adding more textures to this metal piece to like even it out and give it depth that's sticking out of the spine and or against it. And you saw me a few times erase some of these wires like I'm doing now because like you just want to get a good flow on these wires, make them seem like they're going in between the parts of the body. So oftentimes you'll see me erase and draw and like if I don't like the shape it's going in, I'll restart it. That's just me trying to figure stuff out. Like I wanted to feel like a tangled mess, but I want the mess to make sense if you get what I'm saying. Like I just don't want it to be like hanging wires all going the same direction or an abundance of tubings or wires together. Like in practical sense, whenever you're wiring stuff, you want to have it all together in a bunch to where it doesn't get in the way of other parts. But when it comes to drawings like this, I think it's fun to just like add tubing and wiring all over the place. Like makes it more fun, makes it bring it alive. And then when you have different colors than what you're working with, it really adds that pop to it. It gives it more of a defined look. I was gonna say line, but defined look. And then here you go. I'm trying to add the consistency of those wires from the bottom of the torso into the neck. So that way it feels like it's all going in one flow direction. Just to give it some sort of realism, even though this is not real at all. Like this wouldn't look real in any universe. But yeah, so you see me, I'm playing with these wires, trying to find a better spot for them to they feel natural, keeping with the color scheme. But as um you see how like you gotta be mindful of some of these other wire tubes that I've put. You don't want to overshadow them, so you gotta like, as you see, I'm trying to stick them in between them, like give it depth and like they're all bunched up together in random directions. And I see I'm playing with it, trying to figure it out, erasing, drawing, just like trying to find a nice spot for this one. Um, it's all up to preference in this point. Like, there's no right way to do any of this, but when you have a brain like mine, that's just the way it goes. You have to constantly be testing things out and seeing what works in your head. And if you were to apply the same technique to any other artist, they'd probably give it a totally different look or technique, or they'd probably have it, spread out differently. Just everybody's different. Everybody thinks different. So that's just the way I personally do it. I say now I'm adding a little texture to these tubing, so I figured like I don't want to just make like a straight up shadow gradient. I want to actually add a little bit of texture, so I do those little tiny dots just to represent like they're made of fiber. Um, yeah, just little subtle things like that. Those little dots to give it depth that you wouldn't really notice when you zoom out, but it's there. And then I add a little bit of shadowing to the sides to give it like it's sticking out more and prominent. And like I said, none of this has to be perfect. It just has to all um if you're gonna add details, one thing you have to add detail to everything, or else it stands out really weird. But once you do all these little things and you zoom out and you see the bigger picture, it makes sense. Cause like looking zoomed in like this right now, it doesn't look that impressive. It's just little dots that I'm drawing on there. But when you zoom out, you really get the scope of things. So it's just a perfect example of you. It doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to make sense in not the literal sense, but you know what I mean. And there I'm doing the tubing again with the little dots to give more texture. Um, they don't have to be perfect. Just keep them the same shape and size, of course. You know, some I could have went back in there and redid them, but I didn't feel the need to. Like I felt like they served their purpose. And then I'm just drawing the shadows and the outlines for them, and yeah, just trying to make it stand out. And when you look at it from far, you'll see the difference. You'll see the difference. I think those colors really are not too abrasive, but they're just perfect for the skeletal metal of the body. And here I am just adding more shadows to the back of this little section, give it more depth and light and lighting. See, like, okay, this is behind stuff, so let me just darken it up a little bit. Constantly just playing with shadows. And none of these shapes have to be perfect. They just have to all be the same consistency to where it makes something stand out. And then I'm just adding more. Always want to be a little subtle on things like this because you already have established so many colors and detail. If you don't want to just put a giant shadow over something and take away from everything else you built, so you want to lightly add these shadows in. And that's the beauty of playing with your brushes. When you use the opacity and flow tool, you can really save yourself time. Like right there, just a light little shadow. As you can see, I'm going over it, erasing it, trying to find the right angle for it in my head. Like, okay, this is too much, this is too little. Like, let me try this again. It's all a process, really. Just testing things out. I think half these drawings I do, especially these longer ones that I'm starting to do now, because I remember this was supposed to be like a quick sketch thing, but now it's turned into a whole new, let me just go all out on these things. Half the time I spent on these drawings, these in-depth drawings, half the time is spent on just erasing and trying something else and trying something else. Like I'm not satisfied with a first attempt on something, so I'll just draw something, erase, draw, and that's why I love digital. I'll see it over and over because you could do stuff like that. Whereas sketching, it's a little harder to erase stuff sometimes, and painting, well, you could paint over stuff, but like you really want to take advantage of your time and your paints. You don't want to just keep painting things over. So digital is a great way to just like reset and try something else. And to get the vision that you think you want in your head, because nothing's clear. As Bob Ross said, happy accidents. They sometimes the things that you didn't think were gonna work end up becoming your favorite parts of the drawing, and then that becomes its own path that you go on, and you just start playing with that idea. It's like, oh, okay, I didn't think this was gonna be a thing, and now let me try this. So as you can see, I'm drawing more of just the highlights at the back of the robes. Uh, right there, you saw I did a cropping thing because I did exactly what I was talking about earlier. I drew that little light of the robe on the wrong layer, and I had to course correct fast. And it could have been worse. I could have kept drawing and going, and not realized that I had it on the wrong layer. So as you saw right there, I cropped it, cut it, pasted it back and then merged it back with the right layer. Because like I said, when you're working with multiple layers and things, you sometimes you get mixed up. And even if you're labeling things and grouping things, you could still click on the wrong layer and start drawing and not even realize it till like 3, 4, 5 minutes in, and before you know it, you gotta save yourself or stop yourself. Save yourself or stop yourself. I don't even know if that's a thing. And then here I am touching up a little bit more on shadows. I'm pretty sure in the next video I'll work more on the robes. But this video was more of working on the metals and the scratches and little intertwined stuff. Now here's a fun thing. So I had this idea to since this is supposed to be a scarecrow and he's gonna be hung up on a pole, um scarecrows protect crops, right? And what's a tool that harvesters use? A grass hook. So I was thinking like maybe I draw a grass hook, um, but maybe it's like part of him. Maybe it's stuck inside his torso or something. So here I am trying to draw a grass hook, and I don't really know what a grass hook, because there's so many different types of grass hooks. There's small ones, big ones, wide ones. There's so many different types of blades, but I didn't really know what I was doing with this. I was just thinking like, oh, I could draw a grass hook, but like at this point, I'm just like free balling the idea of what it looks like. Eventually, I had to go look at a reference, see what the hell I'm drawing, and you'll see that soon, where I just like course correct everything. But here I am, just trying to get the size right, and like I moved the layer, twisted it, rotated it or whatever, so I could draw it easier because it would be weird drawing it upside down like that. And here I am just playing with texture and trying to get the shadows in the middle down, and you're gonna see how all this right now is just like I scrap it and just try something different because I wasn't really feeling what I was going for at that moment. But here I'm trying to do something. And it's a fine line because you have other metal pieces in the drawing. You have the ribs, the spine, the machinery, and you have the mask and all that, and they have a certain texture already. What I'm already establishing as texture for metal, and then here I am trying to do more organic style, and I was trying to do that. I don't know why. I guess because I was trying to make it stand out from the rest. But then, like, eventually I decided, no, I have to stick with consistency because the rest of it has a certain look to it, so I have to abide to that rule. And you'll see that right now because I was struggling with how to get the shape out of this thing. And like I said, none of this has to be perfect. It's all up to interpretation. Um, but you'll see right now where I make a decision where I'm just like, you know what? I'm going to stop this whole mumbo jumbo new texture I'm trying to create and just stick with the plan of what I already have from the rest of the parts. You'll see it's here eventually, and this will probably be the boring part of the video because it's just focused on this thing alone. I don't know how to make talking about this more exciting. Maybe I shouldn't just maybe I should just shut up for most of this part. I don't know, but as you can see, I'm trying to add scratches and detail, but I've started to make it look too organic. Like I'm turning the textures that you're seeing right now the same as the textures on his head. So I had to like stop and recorrect myself because like what am I looking at here, at that point. And it's coming soon where I just scrap it all and start again. I maintain the same shape, but I definitely start going back in and again, and you'll see right now. And this stuff could be so time consuming, all this stuff. This video right here was an additional 5 hours of drawing. Of course, when you speed it up, it comes down to like 30 plus minutes, but like this was another 5 hours of me just drawing. And sometimes you could spend a good hour or an hour and a half on just this one little thing alone. I think I spent about 2 hours drawing this. I mean, am I doing too much? Am I over complicating things? I don't know. Maybe. But it took about 2 hours, I would say, to draw that, at least. Um, but I think it's worth it in the end. So right here, I'm starting to like think like maybe I shouldn't do it that organic style. I should just stick with consistency, how everything else looks. So I start just throwing the whole gradient down and the darks and the whites. And then there I am again. I'm trying to fight it. I'm trying to add more like weird texture to it. I'm just like, does this look right? Does this look normal? Does this look like the rest of the stuff? Or what is this trying to say? And eventually I'll get frustrated with it and you'll see I'll just like change it up and I'll actually look at a reference. And I didn't stray too much from the original design, but here it is. Here's me at this point. I already looked into a reference and I started seeing how things looked and like, okay, let me just try it this way and see how it works. And this is now me going off of a reference of what it was or should look like, at least to the best of my abilities that I tried to do. And yeah, we'll see let me know what you think about it. We'll see at the end how it comes out. And so there I am, just doing the whole gradient thing and trying to get the shape out of the handle and the where the two metals are welded together to hold the blade. Just adding more shadow and I don't know, it it can be very tedious, all of this, but I think when it's all said and done, it looks really cool. At least I think it does. It like all this progress, all this time spent, I think adds up. And it's like, okay, that's what he was trying to achieve. Okay, it may not be perfect. It may not be exactly a one-to-one of what it should look like, but we see the direction they were going in, and it makes sense. And that's what I'm trying to do right now. So I even turned it because I wanted give my hand a subtle and then turning it back. This is to help my hand with the motions and the strokes. That way I don't, you know, twist my hand trying to draw across. And there I am just playing with the lighting and the shadows. And it's a push, like I said before, it's a push and pull. Like you're pushing one way and then you pull it back another, then you push it forward another, and sometimes you could go over too much and you gotta pull back, and it's a fun little mental game you play with color and lighting, and like I said, you could get lost in it real easy. That's normally what happens to me. I get lost in all this, and then I'm just trying to find things more and add more highlights to it and not make it look too goofy looking. Um, because yeah, you can have certain objects that you're working on be in the style of yours, but then you also want to add a little bit of realism to things. So you kind of want to follow some principles of how things should are supposed to look. And here's just me playing again with the lighting. Uh, like I said, this part maybe not as exciting to talk about, but I'll do it anyways. I'll try. I'll try to make it entertaining. And there's another thing too, like those strokes that go across the very ends of the tips. You gotta be careful because if you go outside the line, it's just more work to erase. It can be very tedious. And all this said, me doing this entire grass hook tool, whatever instrument, uh, it might not even work for the drawing. Like, I still haven't established where I want it in the drawing and how it's going to affect that. But sometimes you can waste like a good 2 hours on something and be like, ah, it's not working. I'm taking it out. That's just my opinion. I try to use mostly everything I draw in one go, but there's been a lot of times where I've just worked on stuff for hours and I abandoned it because it didn't fit what I was trying to do at the end. It may have started off as a great idea in my head of how I wanted it to work with everything else, but then when it stands out too much or it doesn't look right, I just unfortunately will have to scrap it. And I don't know if that'll happen with this tool that I'm working on right here. Maybe in the future video it will not make it to the end, but or maybe I'll use half of it or whatever. But right now, all my focus is on this thing, and that's how you get so lost so fast. And there I am trying to draw like the outer edges of the lighting of the blade, and like it's a battle of that as well. You don't want to do it too bold. You don't want to do it too thin. You just want to do this perfect, nice sheen. And zooming in like I am right now, and I could zoom in even closer if I wanted. It's not perfect. These lines are a little bit jaggedy. Nothing looks final. But when you zoom out, it kind of makes more sense. It's just a reminder, nothing has to look perfect, as I always say. I know a lot of people focus or spend so much time on their line work, which is great, awesome. Like, I wish I had a cleaner line work. I honestly wish I did. It would save me a lot of trouble, but to me, that's not important. Um, yeah, it's gonna look weird if you're drawing like a car, an automobile, a plane, a tank, a jet, or stuff like that, where the lines have to be precise. But you could get away with stuff like this because it could tell a story. Oh, that white line of the highlighted section, that's a little crooked on that edge, or it's a little jankety on this side. You can tell a story with that, like, oh, it's been weathered, it's been used, it's been, you know, bent, it's been curved, it's metal. It represents metal. It's a little jagged, a little rough around the edges, as they say. So it can kind of tell that story as well. So you can get away with stuff like that. It doesn't have to be perfect. Is what I'm trying to say. I'm trying to emphasize it does not have to be perfect. And there I am, just adding more lighting and shadows and going about the business of the handle. And like I said, like one little brush stroke in the wrong direction, and it could throw the whole thing off, and you have to constantly be, pushing and pulling it back to get it to where it's consistent. And that's where I am right now with this. And then here's the old, see that metal scratches, they just come in so handy that when you make them. I'm grabbing a set of this scratches that I've duplicated and merged and twisted together, and I'm using a portion of it and copying it to paste it on the grass hook to give it those scratches. I'm finding a spot that I like, and I'm racing around the edges. That one little spot is just for that one little square right there. I'm trying to make it a little subtle, cleaning things up. Then I'm doing that process again, and I'm trying to find another spot for the main side of the blade. And I'm lowering down the opacity, trying to make it not too bold. Copy and paste, erase all the edges, erase the other section I just did previously, so it doesn't overlap each other like there. See how I erased it? Playing with the opacity, and then having that nice flow, and then doing it one more time for the very tip edge of the blade. Just finding spots that work and going with it. There I am copying it, pasting it, lowering it down, erasing the edges. And when you turn back all three layers of what I just did, boom, there it is. Now you got a full scratch. Merge them all together, bring down the opacity a little bit, and there you have it. and then going in and cleaning up some stuff and adding more lighting to certain areas of these scratches to bring it out more the best I can. I don't, like I said, I gotta be real subtle about this process right here because I don't want to make it stand out too much. There I am, just like drawing little marks and dinks. Um, it's just like I said, subtleness is the key. You don't want to do too much and too little, but you just want to do it just enough to where it sort of makes sense. And you'll see as I'm drawing these little nicks in the metal, I'll add a little scratch or dot here, and then I'll look back, zoom out, give it a second guess, and just erase some of them. Like, oh, that's too much. It looks like a dots now. Doesn't look like what I'm trying to convey. And then I'm going to work on the handle now and trying to figure out where the lighting would go on this. And that's another thing. It's like, where I choose to use lighting is where I'm gonna have to ultimately to choose where this thing is going to be placed because I could draw lighting on the wrong side, and if it's not on the right angle, then it'll look weird. So I'm just trying to get everything matched up. I'm trying to get the I wouldn't call it the handle. I would call it more like the bar. I don't know. Whatever this thing is, I'm trying to get it more in line with the blade. Same colors, same textures. So it's a little process once again to work out and very tedious, but I think in the overall grand scheme of things, it makes sense. It's very subtle little lines. Don't want to do too thick of lines right there. And like I said, if you zoom in, it doesn't look perfect at all. But zoomed out, it works. Just cleaning up the edges. As you can see right there, I'm erasing all the edges and trying to get it all to make sense. And hopefully I did a good job of that and it serves the purpose it's supposed to serve. And that, like I said, none of this is final. I could even, after I'm finished with this, and I do decide to keep it in the drawing, I could even go back later and add more shadows to the metal and stuff. And like, it's just a never-ending thing. You could really get far into it. Then here I am drawing in the screws that would hold these metal pieces together. So I'm adding some lights and shadows to represent screws. Drawing the screws in different directions helps as well. Makes it stand out more. Defining those lines, giving it more shadow. Adding more shadow to the edges. Then trying to keep the same consistency on the bottom half. Grabbing those colors from the top and bringing them to the bottom area. And now, as you can see, I'm working on more scratches for the bottom area. I'm trying to find the right spot for it. Like, okay, where does it look nice with these this little pattern I printed out? Well, not printed out, but like created. And then erasing that, cleaning it up, erasing some of the bolder lines, trying to not make it look too weird. Bringing it down the opacity and the flow, making it more subtle, and then trying to add more defined lines in it, but not too overbearing, like I said before. And yeah, we're coming to the close end of this video, and Thank you for watching and stay tuned for the next one.